This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, Jackson.
Larry's out for a little bit, right?
Larry has conferences or something.
Yeah, he went on a trip someplace, I can't remember. One of his groups that works with us.
Hi, Christina. Are we ready to go? Okay, he gave me the thumbs up.
Good.
Are we ready?
Yep.
I will go ahead and call to order the Tippecanoe County Area Plan Commission Executive Committee to order, and first on the agenda is approval of the minutes.
Do you want to call roll first?
Do we have roll call in this meeting?
For
Yes, we
exec,
do.
we do. For
Yeah,
exec.
we do. Okay, very
Shall
good.
I?
Yes, please do. Thank
All
you,
right.
Jackson.
Larry Leverins, Jackson Bogan,
Here.
Gary Schroeder.
Here.
Jerry Reynolds.
Here.
Greg Jones, Tom Murtaugh,
Present.
Kathy Parker.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. Now we'll take approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from the April 5th, 2023 public hearing as submitted.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any comments or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. New business.
I move to hear and vote on primary approval extension request for Bittersweet Farm, Section 1, RE-0054.
Second, Jerry.
Second.
Thank you. Not working.
Okay. Is everything recording? Sorry, I want to make sure our technology's working here. That doesn't look good. It does not look good. Can't say I've ever seen it do that before.
I have never seen that.
Yikes.
All right, well, it's recording. Well, if we can get our graphics up, we'll try, but you should have your report in hand. Let's go ahead and get through this. Bittersweet Farms, Section 1, this is the third primary approval extension request. If granted, this will extend the preliminary plat approval to July, it would expire July 1st of 2025. The preliminary plat includes 11 lots on a little over 36 acres, located on the east side of County Road 500 West, about 1 mile south of State Road 26 in Wabash Township. Nothing materially has changed with respect to the plans or with the ordinances. The only, since its original approval in 2009, the only changes have been to the Tippecanoe County drainage ordinance, and that's found in condition number 1. Those obviously must be complied with if they decide to pull the trigger on this thing and start building. So that really is the only material change. So beyond that, staff saw no reason why not to extend it. Everything is still in place that would, if they were to, submit this as a new petition, we'd, recommend approval as a RE subdivision. So be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we are recommending a conditional approval of this extension request.
Thank you, Ryan. Does the petitioner or the representative wish to make a presentation? Or just speak to this as the petitioner here?
This is for Bittersweet Farms?
Yeah.
Please
Yeah,
come up.
just come up. And just make, yeah.
Yeah, Norm O'Brien, 1817 Arrowhead Drive. I'd like to say I got a call this morning, I think it's finished, from Bob Gross, said he had the flu real bad. I hope it's not COVID, but he said he wasn't going to be able to make it.
Okay.
So,
We're good.
good.
Just make sure that you're here so we can address that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else wish to comment on this petition? Questions from the board? Hearing none, we have a yellow ballot.
We have a unanimous ballot for the extension. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Public hearing, we have no filings. Approval of the June APC public hearing agenda.
I move that the following subdivision petition be placed on the June 21st, 2023 Area Plan Commission public hearing agenda at petitioner's request, placement thereon being without reference to compliance or noncompliance with the adopted subdivision ordinance. S-5134 Concord Crossing North Major Preliminary.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. Jackson.
I move that the following rezone petitions be placed on the June 21st, 2023 Area Plan Commission public hearing agenda. Z2875 Landmark Properties, Inc., Levy Redevelopment, PD, CBW, and PDMX to PDMX. Z-2887 Gaeta Rentals, Inc., NB to GB. Z-2893 The Fourth Offset, LLC, R2U to NBU. Z-2894 Jose J. Munoz, MRU to NBU. Z-2895 Moon 26E, LLC, AW to A. And Z-2896 Jerry Kittle, care of Innovative Engineering and Consulting, Inc., GB to I3.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. Approval of June ABZ public hearing agenda.
I move the following petitions be placed on the June 28th, 2023 Area Board of Zoning Appeals public hearing. Is that date correct? We've got June 21st on the others, so we've either got to correct.
BZA.
It's BCA. It's a week later.
I should just keep my mouth shut. I move the following petitions be placed on the June 28th, 2023 Area Board of Zoning Appeals public hearing agenda. BZA-2104 Archview Properties, LLC. BZA-2108 Cirrus Solutions Cooperative, Inc. BZA-2109 Scott Brown and Collie Birch Brown. BZA-2110 Buckingham Properties, LLC. And BZA-2111 Tomish Developers, LLC.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. Special exceptions.
I move regarding the following special exception request that this case will not adversely affect the comprehensive plan. BZA-2109 Scott Brown and Collie Birch Brown.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. Nothing for the Lafayette BZA. Review and approval of the May budget report.
I move we approve the May 2023 budget reported as submitted.
Second.
Thank you. The budget report's in the back of your packet. I don't have anything in particular to call out, but would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. Any other business? Okay, hearing none, we'll take that last motion, Jackson.
I move we adjourn.
Okay, we're adjourned. Yes, sir. I don't know. Good question. I don't know. I'd have to look it up and see. Because
Well, I'm going back because it was a while ahead.
Yeah, I remember that. I don't remember.
Because it was NB to GB didn't go.
Okay, 4:35. Are we ready to go ahead and start? Okay, we will wait. Thank you.
All rise.
Better you than me.
Not late. I am not late.
No,
I'm not here till 4:45.
Don't worry, nobody knows.
I know.
We didn't see you coming.
If we're ready to go, I will call to order the Area Plan Commission, Tippecanoe County Ordinance Bylaw Committee public hearing for June 7th, 2023. And first on the agenda, do we have a roll call on this one or not?
We don't generally.
Okay.
I think the record just needs to reflect who's here, and I'm sure Christina will make sure that happens.
Perfect. Okay, first on the agenda, we have approval of minutes.
Move we approve the minutes from the March 1st, 2023 meeting.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Any corrections or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Second, West Lafayette Parks and Open Space Plan, a continued discussion.
Well, I've got our colleagues from the Parks Department here to answer any questions and kind of explain the genesis of this, since this came from their shop. So they're available, but I'm also available to answer any questions about this and the process. And I guess as we do that, it kind of needs to be under the umbrella of kind of our statutory requirements, which I'll let Eric kind of explain. But ostensibly, when a locality authorizes or initiates a ordinance or comp plan amendment process of some kind, the Plan Commission essentially has 60 days to deliver something with or without a recommendation. So that's sort of the context that we're within. Eric, is there more to elaborate on there? I want to make sure I get in the state law right.
No, that's exactly right. Not a lot to add. I mean, the APC, okay, you're the ordinance committee, APC chose to hand it off to you, which does not extend any deadlines. The APC has 60 days to react to the request, and that was received date-wise. What are we?
Well, I think we start the clock from the moment the APC received it, and,
Which
at the
was?
hearing. Yeah, the previous public hearing last month.
So that would have been, I'm just trying to make sure we have the right timeline here. But we've got 60 days before the next APC meeting to respond.
Yes, for the June APC, right.
So I guess the point being that as a recommending body, the APC has the right, and the statute is set up so that it does have the time, 60 days being the statutory time period, to make a response, whatever that response may be. If the response is not made, then they go forward without it. So that's the important thing to remember. So whatever happens here or between now and the APC meeting, the important thing is that the APC have its time to make a decision and send it on with whatever recommendation it wants. And that'll be by the next APC meeting.
And I believe that's in contrast to like a staff-generated thing. Like,
True.
say we came up with a bright idea for an ordinance change, and we brought it to you. Well, it's not, the locality didn't authorize it. We're promoting it, we're sort of proposing it, and so it doesn't have that same kind of statutory type of situation. But when the locality asks for the change, you'll remember with the Lafayette and the self-storage thing, we encountered this. Well, this also happens with comp plan amendments requested by a locality. So
I understand a couple questions I have until I get to somebody else is more the APC procedure.
Sure.
What is the
Yeah, please.
narrative in the ordinance specifically that says there's 5 years to, how does that tie up the property? I mean, do you have that narrative available?
that's in the USO, the subdivision ordinance?
It's in the subdivision ordinance.
Yeah, section 5. I think it's 5.2. I don't have it to memory, but yeah, that's the reservation provision specifically for parks and open spaces. That if a locality has a plan, or if it's part of the Park and Recreation Comprehensive Plan, that they have a right to request essentially a reservation for that space. and for a period of 5 years to essentially come up with the money, to do the deal. And then if they can't, then the reservation lapses or expires, essentially.
Can you make that available for us? I mean, I can
Sure.
read the book and look it up.
Yeah, I
Can
mean,
you
I
look it
can,
up for us?
you want me to try to find it? I think we have an ordinance in there.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Or Steve has it. Maybe he
So
doesn't
is-
have it.
So Gary, is,
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, we got it.
so
Pardon me?
is that an exclusive reservation?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
That's why I
that's,
wanna-
that's what I was wondering is that,
Yeah,
so you
it's-
can lock the land, I mean, you can hold the land for 5 years?
Well, let's find it. Go through it.
Staff, is it possible to look that up and put it up on the screen?
Does the internet work? See if you can pull up the subdivision ordinance.
Okay, well, I was looking that up. How? Question. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, it's a good question. That's what I'm trying to understand.
I've never
procedure.
heard of this before,
I haven't either.
so.
And it's meant for other sorts of public goods as well. I mean, it kind of talks about all sorts of things here.
I just don't understand how you can lock the land up.
I think they're two separate issues. I think they can make a land use plan and adopt that, which,
So, section 5.9, this is page 76 of the USO. Okay. It looks like it's slowly coming up here. It says, in review of subdivisions, the commission shall give consideration to the needs and requirements for the following open space uses, community facilities, including but not limited to, parks based upon the standards recommended in the land use and recreation plans. So if there's a land use plan or if there's a parks plan. School sites, other public, semi-public buildings and facilities and locations for water supply systems, sewage treatment facilities, drainage, proposed thoroughfares in accordance with the land use recreation and thoroughfare plans. Where open spaces or community facilities shown in the land use recreation and thoroughfare plans are located in whole or in part within the subdivision, Commission may require the reservation of such area as may be deemed reasonable for such purposes. And then it talks about the sketch plan process, notice to the property owner. Upon receipt of the report of the Commission, shall notify the property owner. In the event an affirmative report, shall designate on the preliminary and final plats that area proposed to be acquired by the public body. Sub 5, failure on the part of the public body or agency to acquire or initiate condemnation within the prescribed 5 years shall result in the removal of the reserve designation from the property involved and the freeing of the property for development in accordance with these regulations. So it's gone. So.
okay.
And then there's maintenance. During the reservation, the locality must maintain the land since they've encumbered it.
Say that last part again, please.
Maintenance of reserve land. The maintenance of reserve land under the provisions of this ordinance shall be at the time of the primary approval become the responsibility of the public body for whom the reservation has been made, unless another agreement's been worked out. Like if the property owner says, I can mow it, no big deal, or that sort of thing.
So so back up and tell me when that starts, that they take over maintenance of that?
Let's see. It takes place, let's see, referral to the public body. Sketch plan shall be referred to the public body concerned with the reservation for its consideration and report per sections 3.2 and 3.6. Public body or agency shall have 45 days for reply indicating its official action in writing. Public body of agency's recommendation, if affirmative, shall include a copy of the sketch plan showing the boundaries and the area of the land to be acquired and an estimate of the time within 5 years required to complete the acquisition. So it really is on the locality to deliver. I think are you showing that sub 3? Yeah, referral to the public body, yeah. Can you zoom in at all? There you go, that's better. Yeah, just do scroll mode. Yeah. So sketch plan shall be referred to the public body concerned with reservation. So in this case, it would be the legislative body in question. So city council, town board, county commissioners. And then they shall have 45 days in writing to basically explain how they're going to move forward. Shall have 45 days for reply indicating its official action in writing. So the locality, essentially, I guess in this instance, the legislative body would make the reservation. It would be a public action on their part.
So even though we adopt that in the land use plan, that does not trigger the 5 years? Is that what I understand? It does not?
Yeah, it's up to the jurisdiction, because they're under some regulatory, hoops to jump through here to, they can't just reserve it and then not have a plan. They actually have to detail a plan to the owner about how they plan to acquire, and if it even comes to that, it could easily come to just a deal, especially if we're talking about floodplain land or something like that it can't really be developed. So it's an untested ordinance. It's been on the books for decades. And as far as I know, I talked to Don Lamb, who would know, and he says he's never seen it utilized. So I think most of the time, a lot of these park spaces that have appeared in neighborhoods and other subdivisions have just been kind of just side deals. Either they've agreed to it, yeah, that works, we'll do that. I mean, it's just been kind of almost like a gentleman's agreement type of thing. Or they've done something outside of our process here and just did a straight, land deal. Say, hey, the city's interested in this as a park. Or perhaps someone say, hey, we're interested in developing in this, and we'd like to gift this to the city. Something outside of our process. That just a typical land transaction.
So can the time be changed in the 5 years? I mean, they can negotiate that time whatever they want.
Yeah, presumably. So, I mean, since it's essentially two parties, I think that since it is sort of an untested ordinance, we'd probably consult with our attorney if. Certainly, say, let's play hypothetical. Say the city of West Lafayette was interested in pursuing something within the city limits and wanted to use, this clause. We'd have to walk through the legalities of it to, make sure we're doing it right.
That's what I mean. Can we
since it's
say,
never been
okay, we'll
utilized.
give you 1 year. I'm just using that as an example instead of 5.
Pardon me?
Do we have that authority to say you have 1 year instead of 5? Or is it 5 just, it's got to be up to 5?
It says within 5, so presumably you could go lower than that. Yeah, you could strike a deal and say, hey, we'll do a deal, get a deal within a year. That's the deal. That's the, it's official action in writing as it refers to, it just, they have up to 5 years. They can't hold it beyond that, or they can't make a reservation deal beyond the 5 years.
Okay, but they could negotiate in between 1 and 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's really up to the locality to determine like how long it's going to take us to raise the funds, that we need to purchase, to do the deal. So.
So we have some preliminary questions. Do you have any more to present, Ryan? Otherwise, I might take some public comment, and then we'll get back to our discussion to make sure we're discussing the right things.
Yes, of course.
If you have more.
I really don't have anything beyond that. I already kind of presented the plan, and you guys saw the report, and it's online, so
Yeah.
I could take questions about that.
Okay.
Again, the root causes of where this all came from, definitely bring up the parks folks and let
Okay.
them explain themselves,
Okay.
But beyond that, I'm available for questions.
Okay, perfect. Sure, go ahead, please do.
I'm a little confused. So 60 days for you to put a plan together, for you to get it to APC, and for us to recommend up or down, right? Is that what we're saying?
Well, I think the way this would flow, if it follow, in terms of the subdivision process, is that essentially they would have to, I think the public body would have to sort of agree to the terms of the reservation before the APC approves the sketch. That way it's a complete package. I would assume that, because otherwise it's kind of incomplete. You'd be, approving something that, it doesn't have, but I guess if they've at least agreed to the area, and then really that's all that will be reflected on the sketch plan, is this area of square footage is reserved by the city per this deal, and and then it's on the city, or in this case, I'm just using them as an example, to fulfill the rest of the requirements. So,
Excuse me, I'm talking, yeah, and.
I'm sorry.
Let me clarify.
Yeah, go
No,
ahead.
I'm talking about the overall, the West Lafayette Park and Open Space Plan.
yeah,
So, City of West Lafayette asks APC to put a plan together for this. You have 60 days, or I don't know, how much time did you have, your office, to put it together, to get it to?
yeah, right. I mean, it took, yeah, we didn't just whip this out in 60
Right.
days. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that's where, and Eric can probably speak to that. I know you don't have your state code with you right now, but you mentioned that where state code is sort of, I guess it doesn't quite say, is it, because City Council did pass a resolution authorizing this, and so that's a date that we
Okay.
could mark from. But I believe there was some language in there about, accommodating essentially the reasonable start time for whatever the request is. In this case, it's a fairly comprehensive look at speculating on future park spaces, and the city wanted to be very public about it. Areas inside and outside their current boundaries, areas that they might annex some decade from now. So, that, we couldn't have pulled that off in 60 days,
Right.
So I think that, without getting overly rigorous, we're just like, well, it's sort of, our deliverable was to the Parks Board. That's ultimately was our client in this transaction.
Okay.
So, so we sort of like, after we got the finished version and the staff was ready, we got it on the Parks Board agenda, and then, that's certainly another date. And then the Parks Board wanted to hear it again, and so we had a second hearing the month after. So,
Jackson, I think APC staff has probably been working with Parks Department for 10 months a year on this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
The
Okay.
60-day mark is that the APC, this body, well, not this body, but the Area Plan Commission, the
Yeah.
17 members,
So that's-
have 60 days
Right.
to hang on to it, and they have to move it within 60 days.
and that's our reading of state codes. The clock starts when APC gets it.
Okay, and so.
At their hearing date.
So we received it let's
Last
just call it,
month. Yeah.
let's call it 30 days.
Sure.
30 days from next Wednesday.
Okay.
So we will have we will have one more meeting and one more ordinance meeting that we'll be able to discuss this potentially. So if we don't come up with something today, we'll have one more ordinance meeting no?
I think you have one more APC meeting. Your next meeting will be.
Yeah, the June meeting.
Your next
yeah.
meeting will be the June APC meeting, and you will not
That's
have had
where we have-
another ordinance committee.
And that's where we have to make a decision.
Yes, you need
We'll
to
make
make
a
a decision
recommendation, yeah.
at the next APC meeting in order to be within that 60-day deadline. And again, it's a recommendation from the APC, however the APC recommends. Yes, no, maybe so, whatever it is.
And if we would recommend no, can it come back so that we have time to vet it, or is it dead?
Well, it's not dead, because if you
It goes to
recommend.
city council for an up or down vote
Yeah.
with your recommendation of no in that hypothesis.
Again, it's a recommendation,
Yeah.
so whatever the recommendation is, the public body, which is not the APC, terminology-wise, the public body is the elected officials,
Okay.
would then take that recommendation into account, and then they would do what they want, because it's only a recommendation.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
So was the public involved in the year-long process through APC?
Pardon me?
Was the public involved in that year-long process in which APC was working on it? Were there public meetings and?
Well, in terms of what informed the plan, yes, the public process that the city had gone through developing their parks plan, and I kind of state this in the staff report, that we sort of considered this document as kind of like an appendix to what they'd already done. And so, they can talk about that. But I had already mentioned before that given this vast area, we've never, especially with comp plan amendment, this isn't zoning. We're not changing the law on anyone here. When we change people's zoning, we do mail letters to property owners, even if it's a truckload of them. And we don't have to do that to meet the public requirements per state code. But for comp plan amendments and things like this, we, typically don't, unless it's a really small area. In this case, it's not. It's a vast area. So, so in talking with the city, we felt, comfortable using their Parks Board, hearing, and in the case we had 2 hearings, that they publicized widely and had the plan on. to, to have people provide some feedback if they had any. So, but just because of the nature of the document, it's a comp plan amendment. It's in this case, it's a lot different than kind of a land use plan. It's like a speculative parks plan. They're eyeballing places that might have some value for the future for expansion of the park system. So they kind of wanted to be public about it and identify locations that they thought might be worth investigating, and actually have a plan that it's not just arbitrary dots on a map, but it had some sort of, logic behind it. And that's at least what they impressed upon us when they were asking us to pull something together for them. So,
I guess I get confused by the word public,
Yeah.
because we're saying public was involved and or had some, but yet it's a West Lafayette, city of West Lafayette that's, the dream is to be, what I'm looking at is county, where some of the areas are. But yet, I guess I just don't understand.
Let's hear from the West Side
public.
staff. Yeah.
I'll just say that
How your public process.
I went to a public meeting. Didn't we have one at Klondike Middle?
That had
Klondike?
nothing to do with
I'll let
this.
you guys-
Oh, what?
That's a land use plan.
Oh, okay, that was different.
Wabash Township.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Kathy Lozano. I'm the Superintendent of Parks for West Lafayette. We are growing. The city is growing. Our department is growing, but we don't have very much space left within the city boundaries of West Lafayette. We wanted to take a look at what our current open space plan was that was last modified in 1983, I think. So it was rather old and decrepit, but really had a lot of the same ideas that we had been talking about in our staff meetings and about wouldn't it be great if we could this. So we asked to look at some areas that might potentially someday be able to become a park for us. And if we were annexed into the city of West Lafayette, especially. Our master plan is, we went through an extensive public process for that. We just updated it last year, I believe. And so it is ready to go. And people in West Lafayette want more open space. We don't have much open space left, so we need to look and see for every nook and cranny that we can possibly make green space. It's just a dream right now. We looked at spaces that were floodplain and probably not developable pieces of property that were in the immediate surrounding community that connected through our trails plan. And we hoped that along the way, we could make a trailhead, a small park, a small outpost that would help alleviate some of the crowding and give us more green space. So that's what we were looking at. There's no plan to take anybody's property right now. Just because it's on the map doesn't mean that we're going after that piece of property. It doesn't mean anything right now. It was just a potential dream to do that. And Bryce can tell you a little bit more about the public process that we did for the master plan. It was extensive, and we had a big outpouring and a lot of interest in it. So,
good afternoon. I'm Bryce Paz, Community Forestry and Green Space Planner for our Parks and Recreation Department. So we completed our 5-year master plan, which is required by the state DNR, and we completed and adopted that back in 2021. We had an extensive, over a year-long process of doing our master plan. We had over 4 public hearing and public input sessions. We had 3 online surveys, and we had a huge import, I should say, from the county wanting to be access to our park system. So with that process, coming up with our tasks for the next 20 plus years, because our master plan does look into that future. Open space was the #1 call for our community. So then we want to look at, okay, we are pretty much built out in West Lafayette, so how do we meet that goal that our community has charged us to do? And so that's when we listed the expertise from our Area Plan Commission and noticed that we had the last plan that was done by the county was in 1981. So we saw that this is an opportunity for us to look into that. How do we identify these spaces? The benefit of the process of how we came up with this plan was we knew that it's out in the county. We know that it's not in our jurisdiction. And so what we want to do is, can we create a policy, something that we can look at on what would qualify as potential green space that we could preserve as we grow as a community, not just West Lafayette, but as the county as a whole. And so we looked at areas that would be more difficult to develop. We want to make sure that we are an equal partner to the development side as well as to the community, so we can give them access to that. The second part is we had a large steering committee that was guiding this document here. We wanted to make sure that we had all voices be part of that process. So we had groups from Purdue, we had groups from land trusts, because our vision, we recognize that the community doesn't necessarily care who owns or maintains that property. They want access to green space for their quality of life. And so we wanted to make sure that this was a policy document, so it's not just the West Lafayette Park System, but it's a park system for the county. So that was the benefit of how we came up with our steering committee and how we came up with this document. So I can answer any questions in terms of our 5-year plan as well as how we came up with this.
Yeah, I have a question. Now, you said you involved the public. Was any landowner involved with being, I mean, if he's owning land, or was it just his land endorsed into the plan and he didn't know anything about it?
So in terms of all the spaces that were highlighted on the map, we didn't necessarily notify everyone. Again, we are looking at a policy document, not a land use document. So we are looking at what would be a great qualification for a park space that would be difficult to develop, that could remain as green space. So we looked at floodplains, we looked at rugged terrain, areas that could potentially be a park space. We also talked to previous landowners to our Parks Foundation, and one of the feedbacks that we got was you had a plan for the nursery site, and so we wanted to donate towards that because you had a plan in place. And so that's another reason why we want to come up with this policy document is people want to know that you're going to be a steward of the piece of property that means something to them. So that's another reason why we had this document put in place.
I just don't like a plan that the landowners hasn't been notified. You know, if these people maybe had something their own, they should have that choice without being thrown under a common law, a mandatory type of a law. I don't agree with that.
Again, we wanted to look at a policy. So we were looking at what could potentially be preserved green space.
There is nothing mandatory about anything that is in this plan. It's all about negotiating with landowners if that potential ever came up. There's no intention of going out and, mandatory, saying, we're going to take this land right now. We don't have the capacity right now to do that. We just want to be ready when we do have capacity and we need to find something to have the ability to go and negotiate with maybe some of those people on that map, but maybe somewhere else. They just happen to have pieces of property that don't look like they could develop it, and it might be something that they might like to talk to us about negotiating.
My point being is why weren't they part of it? Or why weren't they at least notified?
Well, when we're ready to do that, we will do that.
After you've already got this in place.
Well, but it's just a piece of paper with a picture on it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So, good point. Clarification then, because maybe from staff, Ryan, because I've heard a couple comments, they talk about this being a policy document, and I think planning is good from the Parks Department. I think they should look forward and have a policy document, but then it sounds like it's a land use plan that you're invoking a 5-year reservation, so I'm I'm not clear. I keep hearing policy document.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I mean, I think
Parks are a public good, just like a school
No, I
or anything
understand. No, I'm
else.
talking technical.
So-
Is it a policy document or is it a land use plan?
It's a policy document.
Okay,
So,
so-
because the exact boundaries are not determined, so we can't,
So
it's still
invoke the-
subject to negotiation
Can they
ultimately.
invoke a 5-year reservation with a policy document?
Mhm.
Okay.
They could now. If you see the 1981 plan, there's parks all over the place that are mentioned on that thing.
Okay.
So-
Duration of land reservation. Okay.
Mhm.
So,
And you're free to disagree with the ordinance and
Understand.
vote
Yeah,
no if you don't like how it
That's
sounds
what
to
I
you.
was- yeah,
So,
I mean, it's-
one other clarification, and I think what was presented to us was in October 2021, West Lafayette City Council approved a resolution in October 2021 to authorize APC to study the parks.
correct,
Right.
yeah.
And then in spring of 2022, they put a group of stakeholders together, which included Purdue University, Niches Land Trust, Tippecanoe County Park staff.
Correct.
Okay.
Basically,
Then-
park professionals.
And then you talked about, there was a couple plans were delivered to the Parks Board at the end of 2022, draft plan formally at February, and a public hearing of March. And the final version was unanimously recommended for approval. So this document was approved by the Parks Department.
The City Parks Board.
Okay, so it's not been approved by West Lafayette City Council.
Nope, that's the last stop.
So when you brought it to us, it's just a Parks Department, and maybe that's why you're saying it's a policy document.
Correct.
And so until West Lafayette City Council maybe takes action on it, which they have not done, I'm not sure that.
They're the legislative body.
Right.
We have a resolution that we have to respond to, and so we have to deliver ultimately to
You have a
them
resolution from who?
from the City Council.
In 2021?
Yes, yeah. They authorized
But
APC to study this.
they've not approved the document that you brought to us.
No,
Okay.
yeah.
So I would think they would approve that
Because comp
document.
plan amendments normally come through APC.
Okay.
For
I'm just-
recommendation.
I'm confused from a legality standpoint. When does the 60-day clock start?
We think from the hearing date, the first time that APC hears it.
Right, we've already had one hearing date. APC heard it coming from the Parks Board.
Right. And that's consistent with what we did with the ordinance on self-storage, too.
Yeah, the question is, has it been initiated? And I think the answer to that is yes. A public body, the Parks Board, has initiated it and is
Okay.
asking the APC to give advice.
Okay.
And
Well, the flow would be the Parks Board essentially asks City Council to
Which-
authorize the
so
resolution.
I don't think it's the same, because I thought City Council of Lafayette initiated the zoning change. Is that correct? For the self-storage?
City Council's
So
request,
City Council, not a board.
as
Right.
communicated by Dennis,
Okay.
Carson.
But the City Council addressed it and approved it, was my
Right.
understanding.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. So that hasn't happened in this case?
The West Lafayette City Council passed the
Just a
resolution,
resolution
That authorized APC
APC, to
study?
do what we did.
to
Okay.
study.
We can hash that out later.
And
but
then-
It seems,
Because there's a park authority, there's a park board that they answer to.
okay.
They were our clients, and so we delivered the plan to them, worked it out. They took it to their bosses, the Parks Board. They recommended approval for it.
Okay.
And so now we can take it to City Council saying Parks Board approved it.
Okay.
And that's their process, not mine.
Yeah, so
You know.
you just said you could take it to West Lafayette City Council, which hasn't happened yet. So it has to come here first?
That's the process for a comp plan
Okay, so
amendment.
we'll review it, make comments. Okay, just trying to get the procedure down.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know
So
we're all kinda
I was
new to
just
this.
confused
It's
by the policy
understandable.
document and land use plan. I think I'm all for planning
Yeah.
and identifying. I think it's great. I think where the rub comes in is where you're saying, at some point, we can put a 5-year moratorium on you doing anything with your property. In essence, that's what you can do. And I think that's where the rub comes in. So anyway, thank you for that clarification, and maybe we'll take some more comment.
Sure.
Can I make one statement that
Please
maybe
do.
will cut through a little bit? We've passed it by briefly, but I think the statement that has to be understood is this has nothing to do with anything outside the city of West Lafayette. That it's like, you might as well plan for Canada. It has nothing to do with the county. It has only to do with the city of West Lafayette. So if it goes outside the boundary, that has no legal impact whatsoever. There's no 5-year, there's no nothing, because the city of
Right, it'd have to
West
be within their
Lafayette Council
jurisdiction.
does not control Tippecanoe County ground. That would have to come back to the commissioners. So
Correct.
as far as it's outside the city, means nothing. There's no legal impact of it. It's merely wishes and desires, and here's what would be nice. So I think that's important for a lot of the folks in the audience to understand.
Can I,
Do you have any more questions of them? Or-
No, I appreciate it. I maybe take some other public comment if anybody else has any thoughts before we continue our discussion.
Good afternoon. I'm Darren Sorensen, Shrewsbury Drive, West Lafayette. I said something last time this came up. I was never notified of any of these meetings that they say they had, and I own hundreds of acres out here. And I don't like, I can look at this right now, this map that I'm looking at right now. I know you're saying that it's in the county and it doesn't mean anything, but it goes right behind my house that I'm building right now. So I don't want a trail behind my house. And I was never asked if I wanted a trail behind my house. It seems like there's only like 5 or 6 parcels you've identified that you want to make into green space or open space. Can't you just contact those 5 or 6 people that own those properties? See if any of them wanted to.
Yeah, just make your comments.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I see several things in this. I'm the developer. And my point is if this goes in the comprehensive plan and I come in with a subdivision, I'm going to be told that the sketch plan, I'm doing that. Because I've been told that before. They can say we can go and negotiate this stuff at the sketch plan, but it's not a negotiation. It's, you're going to do that. This is in the comprehensive plan now. I say this should be, all of these, anything outside of West Lafayette shouldn't be included in this. If West Lafayette wants to look for parks in West Lafayette, and that's fine for me. But once it gets outside into the county, unless somebody actually wants this to happen, I don't see where it's a good idea at all.
Question for clarification. Do you own any land within the city limits?
Yes, I do.
That's been identified
Yes, I
as a
do.
park? So, if I understand Eric's comment, that would fall under this
It has.
purview? Yes.
It has.
Okay.
Already.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't say anything in the thoroughfare plan, but I'm putting in, I'm going to have to, I've been told I have to put in a trail system that's not on anything other than, well, it's on this one now, but it's not on the other one. So I just think that it's a little more of a grab than I like. I like the idea of planning just like everybody else. But when you say it's going in the comprehensive plan, to me that means whoever develops that site is going to pay for it because they don't have any money to do it. That's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
I have one question for you. What page are you looking at on the plan?
I'm just looking at this.
You're looking at that one, okay.
I think there's going to be some other people to tell you what they think.
Okay. Yeah. Anyone else wish to comment, please? Thank you.
Brent Skelton, live on Coyote Crossing Golf Course next to where Darren is building. I just found out about this about an hour ago. I'm willing to listen to all the comments and have listened to it, but it seems to me that it's a little sneaky that all this is kind of being done and planned and potentially going to happen without the homeowners having any knowledge of it at all. Again, I'm all for planning. I have kids. Happy to have parks, want parks. But I bought a lot specifically in this neighborhood that borders the golf course, that backs up to the golf course. I paid more money to have that specific lot. I live down a private lane, so my kids are back there by themselves and aren't out in the public, and having everybody in our backyard is not something I'm looking forward to, and I would be adamantly against. And the proposed trail system runs between my backyard and the golf course, again, which I paid extra for to make sure that I had that specific lot, that specific view, and that specific area for my children. So I'm going to be a little selfish here and say that's not something I want. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Anyone else wishing to address this?
Steve Ratcliffe, 401 East, 500 North. I actually do lay in within West Lafayette. When the city of West Lafayette wanted to annex Lauren Lakes in that area, Mayor Mills at that time come to me, and they needed our property to get the, 50 plus 1 acre or whatever it was, so we agreed. But there was never anything that she mentioned to us that we would possibly be turned into a park. We sold part of the property off of our home farm for development, to man properties and like that. Monday, a friend of mine calls me and says, "Hey, Steve, have you seen this new West Lafayette Parks map?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, there's this yellow area on there, and it says Ratcliffe Farm Park on it." And I go, "What are you talking about?" And clearly it says Ratcliffe Farm Park. I take exception when they say people were contacted. We're there, and somebody could have drove down the driveway, they could have sent us a letter, we never heard a thing. And all of a sudden, I also take exception now to when they say, "Well, at this time, we have no plans to take property." Well, that doesn't give us a lot of, good feelings about the whole deal, that at some point, like what happened to Krause's with TSC over on Klondike Road, if they decide they want our, family farm, what's remaining of it, for a park. So, if they're going to be fair about it, we'll talk to them. I've sold ground to other developers and like that in TSC, but this was not done right. They should have contacted the landowners before they put their names on those and said, "This yellow area is part of what we're going to do this, 5-year reservation on." Because we already have lots, I believe, platted as part of the original Lauren Lakes development of the remaining parts of what they are wanting to, designate. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
Barney Schuman with the Greater Lafayette Builders Association. Basically just had one question relating to the overall sketch plan of this. What is the actual estimated cost? And, the funding mechanisms are fairly vague: grants, impact fees, donations, et cetera. Is there an actual cost of the prescribed, trails and parks that are on that document? Is there an actual estimated cost?
Good question. Well, maybe they'll have a comment for us on that.
And it's a little vague on the funding side, and the word impact fee gets, thrown around, quite a bit. And that, just kind of looking at that, potentially next development, or any other ones, if they impose an impact fee for all parks, they could just blanketly, add it to the permitting process. Could be thousands of dollars, just adding that on to the cost of a new house as well. So.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Brent Wells, I'm representing Coyote Crossing Golf Club. I'm the president of Coyote Crossing LLC. I'd like to say that we just found about this yesterday afternoon. Thankfully, one of our members shared this information with us. It looks like on page 29, there's some areas of the golf course that are earmarked for this. We are obviously very opposed to anything path going through the golf course. We are very open for open spaces and outdoor activities. That's our business, is our livelihood. We do our part to be part of the community, and this is not something that we would be in favor for at all. So if there's another meeting that we need to be a part of, I'd like to be notified of this in advance. Our owners would definitely like to be notified, and if they need to have attorneys present, they would like to be notified.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Any other comments? Okay, back to the board. Any new questions, comments?
I just
we've
have
heard some input.
Go ahead.
Go ahead if you're.
Is there any way that we can table this for further discussion? Because like we said, the landowners don't even know about this. They said they had public meetings, but these people should have been, I'd have been upset too if I'd owned some property out there, and all at once I find out that now I'm going to have a trail or a park, and the plans that's already been developed or filed, what's going to happen with those? And some of these already got homes on them.
Yeah.
Good point.
Quick question. I believe this would go to you, Mr. Burns. So this vote, not ours, but APC's, is for West Lafayette only. There are parks notated that are outside of the city of West Lafayette, currently in Tippecanoe County. if it would go through and the city of West Lafayette annexes land that is on that map, does that land now meet the requirement of the 5-year?
That would be an untested question. I believe that the answer would most likely be yes, but I can't tell you that definitively because I think that's about a third level deep question. I don't know how much this state statute's ever been tested. I've not been asked to look into that, but perhaps I should.
Okay.
But in general, when an annexation occurs, there is a change in the boundary, change in the status of that property that's annexed, which increases property taxes, which does a lot of different things to that property, not all of which would be necessarily desired by the property owner. So would the if it passed a 5-year land reservation, would that go with it? I think that's probably the case. I can't give you a definitive answer because I haven't researched it, but that would be what I would expect based on analogies to current law that I'm aware of.
Thank you. I have one other comment because we could sit here and talk about this for a while. I'm getting the impression that everybody's feeling a little uncomfortable, maybe rushed might be the word, that we're all dreamers and we like outdoors and we like parks. I know a lot of the developers in this room donate land to make those things happen. I'd like to recommend, because we have to do something, I would like to table this if possible. Jerry, unfortunately, at the very beginning, I think it's pretty clear we cannot do that a vote has to take place next Wednesday. So I would like to recommend that we pass our recommendation of a no vote from the Ordinance Committee to Area Plan to further study this, and then that would, if APC votes it down, that'll send a no recommendation to the West Lafayette for their final deal.
And I'd second that.
So we have a motion and a second to send a recommendation to the Plan Commission that we are not in favor of this. So I have a motion and a second to that. Any discussion?
I just want to ask a quick question. So, and I apologize, I was not at the APC meeting last month. It was sent back to ordinance to do what?
Clarify procedure, things that we didn't know. We did not actually know what the ordinance said. Try to get some public input. A lot of people were not aware.
Just to allow an additional public hearing?
Right, to try to air this out a little bit more before we make a recommendation.
Okay. But, I mean, I completely agree with Jackson. I feel incredibly rushed.
I do too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at a majority of this for the first time, you know, and I had no idea about this 5-year.
Nobody did.
I've got to wrap my head around that before.
Well, it's part of the ordinance which we could change to 30 days. I mean, I think we have the authority to do that. I think it's probably clear the Parks Department would have the right of eminent domain, just like the school corporation does. I mean, that's been court tested, and the appeals court said you have the right of eminent domain.
The city would, yes.
Yeah, I
not
think it's
the parks.
I'm sorry, the city would have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's a court-tested question.
Absolutely.
That they would have that right. So if they want it, they can eminent domain it, and then you just negotiate in court if you wish. So anyway.
Can I just say something? So I have seen the plan a couple times because I sit on the park board. I don't vote on the park board, but, you know, what Kathy and Bryce said was right. The people in West Lafayette want to save park space. I think my understanding is that the 5-year plan doesn't start until there's a plan proposed, right? Isn't that what you said? So if this plan, we have to show plans of what we're going to do with the particular property before the 5-year.
Basically, the locality wouldn't want to enter into one of these agreements unless they had a plan to pay.
Right.
So the cash.
Yeah.
Or they're willing to go legal and go eminent domain, which has severe tests you have to meet. You know, you try to avoid court if you can. I think, you know, most reasonable people would agree. So, yeah, so that's, you know, so yeah, it's, you know, the city couldn't just, you know, they would have to go in with really serious that this is a facility that they need to meet their goals, to meet the city's goals, and they're willing to put their money on the table to do so.
Right.
You know, and I have a feeling vast majority of these sorts of things are just going to happen outside of it's just going to be land transactions. Someone's going to be willing to sell, and they'll come up with an arrangement and an area and do the deal. I mean, the city of West Lafayette's already been land banking around few spots outside the city limits that they already own in anticipation of having some park space. So they're already off to the races trying to acquire, spaces that have been important to them for many, many years. As Kathy said, to, further the objectives of having more open space as the city grows and, the community grows and has more sophisticated needs for recreation, et cetera. So.
Yeah. And what I remember most is that the land that has been proposed is undevelopable, which I cannot say 5 times fast, but.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that the areas that were identified, we specifically picked like the lowest hanging fruit. Floodplain land, severe graded land that's 25% grade or steeper. Yeah, you can build on that, but it's expensive and it's tough, and it makes for an interesting yard, and then land that's already in the public hands, whether in Purdue's hands, the Research Foundation's lands, which they're kind of quasi-public, but they're private, but given the relationship with the university, it's quasi-public. Or it's owned by the county, existing county land that's already park space, either owned by the Parks Department or owned by the commissioners. But it's already in the public's hands, so it's not, there's no private transaction needed. Now, whether that public body wants to pursue that, that's up to them. But, so those are the sites that were identified. And then in terms of the trails, those would, if say there was an interest in pursuing those, it would be via easement. We try to secure easements for those and try to do a deal for getting easements. You'll see that in a lot of places where, especially in urban areas where there's wilderness areas, they won't necessarily acquire because they don't need a lot of land. They just need a space to go along. The Wabash Heritage Trail is an example of that. It's essentially just public has access to it, but it runs through all sorts of private property. It's just all in the floodplain.
I want to kind of get back to our motion here.
Yeah.
So that's my fault. So we have a motion on the floor and a second. If there's any more discussion specific to that motion, we will hear that. Hearing none, we'll take a vote on that motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. There's an official recommendation from this group to the Plan Commission to say no. Now, there's a few more questions I have, but you made the motion.
Yeah, here again, I'm a dreamer as well. I love the outdoors. I love fishing. I love hunting. Let's bring hunting into the cities because that'd be a lot of fun too. But let's have a discussion. Let's do it. I just don't feel that any of us are in a position. That's why I made the motion when I did, to make a decision next Wednesday and involve the people that need to be involved, i.e. many of the people that are sitting in this room today, and especially the ones that it would affect their land. I cannot imagine sitting there if I owned a piece of property and all of a sudden I find out a trail's running through it that I had maybe purchased for investment. Maybe I wanted to donate it to something. Maybe it doesn't matter. I own it, and that would be very disturbing to me. And so that's the reason for the motion. I appreciate the vote. And yeah, let's open it up for further discussion. I don't think it's dead, but I think there's a lot of work to do still.
Right. Okay. I'll go back 20-plus years when, and this is before your time, Ryan, I think Kathy was the only one here, when they were doing a large land use plan on the west side where maybe it was during new zone, and they rolled in some new zoning. Came to the ordinance committee, and then it became aware that this happened. Nobody was notified that their property is being rezoned. And I think there was an amendment to the Plan Commission ordinance that you had to notify landowners. Does that sound reasonable? Is that in the ordinance? You had to notify landowners when you're rezoning their land. And I was part of that because I was a citizen at that time and they were trying to rezone some of our land. But I believe that's already in the ordinance. So one thing that we could do is amend the ordinance to say that if you're going to do this, and nothing against the Parks Board, because they're following procedures that's published for them. They're not required to go out and notify landowners. So it seems to me like it'd be reasonable that if you're going to make a land use plan with somebody's land, you'd have to notify them. So that may be something for discussion for this group, that we'd propose an ordinance to make sure they get notified. So the next time this comes around, the groups is doing it, whether it be Plan Commission, Parks Department, whatever else, they have to involve the people early on that they're getting involved. That's one thing. The next thing, I'm back to, I hasn't got it through my mind yet, that the Parks Department has the authority to make a land use plan amendment under state law. I think West Lafayette City Council does, but I haven't read that
They've
recently.
requested it.
They've requested it, yeah.
Parks Department has made the request. That initiated the staff function, and everything has moved forward for 8 or 10 months
Now,
from
the
that time.
city council requested it, not the Parks Board.
It started with the Parks Board, is my understanding. Is that true?
Well, yeah, but then that triggered the city council to make their action, yeah.
There was a resolution from the city council.
To study the Parks Department and open space. Okay, so they did a study, now what? I said just do a study. No, I'm a stickler, so I just have to read the state law again, because we had that issue with the city.
Now we're
law.
arguing between the definition of what
Just a
study means.
Well, I'm not about, I'm just talking about the thing that we had where the city of Lafayette proposed a zoning change on a piece of property downtown. That came from the city of Lafayette, was my understanding. So,
Council.
same for city council, my point. And then we were informed that, and I understand that state law and we'll follow that, that they get to make their proposal, we can comment on it if we disagree. Ultimately, they get what they want. Yeah, I'm just making the point, and I guess I'd like for you to look into that, is the Parks Department have the authority of West Lafayette City Council under state statute to, let's say we recommend denial, what happens then? So we're going to recommend denial, it goes back to them. Do they have the same authority that the city of Lafayette would have had? Because it'd been in front of the city of West Lafayette for the zoning change when it came to us.
Yeah, it's city council.
Yeah.
Not Park Board.
Right. So it's a different animal. So that's my question. I don't think, it's my opinion as a quasi-attorney.
Was your question answered?
He's going to check it, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you just got to read the state law and see what his opinion is, maybe see what court cases are. And I guess the other thing is, with this 5-year, is there any case law out there? Because my guess is, if this has happened someplace else, somebody's not going to be happy, and they're going to challenge that, as maybe some people in this room would challenge it too, and there's no need of reinventing it. If there's already case law out there, that'll give us some direction of how we can proceed. Does that seem reasonable? Okay. Okay. So. No, go ahead.
I'm still stuck on this. If the park board initiated it and they held these meetings, I would say we have 5 or 6 people out there with several thousand acres of ground in West Lafayette, or hundreds of acres, and why weren't they notified?
Because they weren't required to. In their defense, that's why.
Well, yeah, I understand, but I
They
mean.
weren't required to.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't.
They're planners, and that's what they did.
Okay.
So,
I just.
to answer that question. Now, I guess another procedural question. So this goes through, it gets adopted by the city of West Lafayette. What if the county does not adopt it? Because they get so much pushback, and the county council does not adopt this plan for the county. Then it's.
Commissioners, yeah, it's county commissioners'
I
call.
apologize.
And think of the boundary. City boundary is the city boundary. Anything outside the city boundary, whatever happens, has no impact whatsoever on anybody outside the city until and unless the county commissioners say yes to it. City council cannot control anything outside the boundary. You brought up the annexation issue, that's a wrinkle to it, but in general, when city council passes it, it only pertains to city property within the city limits.
So would this, if take all this discussion out of the picture, would this be something that would go to both the county and the city of West Lafayette?
I'm not sure that's been requested. I don't believe the county's been asked to do it.
If it becomes part of the ordinance, doesn't it have to be approved by the jurisdictions?
It's not, this isn't an ordinance.
It's not an ordinance,
This
just
is
a
a
plan.
comprehensive plan amendment.
Okay. So
This isn't law.
So this is a comprehensive plan.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
So that pertains to one jurisdiction.
Okay.
So it's
you're not
just.
going to ask the county to vote on it, like you do all other.
They
all
could,
other
but it doesn't
amendments.
apply to them. I mean, they could. It doesn't apply to them. It's requested to the of the city.
I
So,
understand, but it includes land in the county. So when we submit an ordinance change, or an amendment to the ordinance, doesn't it go to all 5 jurisdictions for approval?
Yes.
Okay, so it would go to the county for approval.
This comp plan amendment, it would, but they have no, it's West Lafayette business, even though it shows areas out in the county.
That's not my question. My question is, does it go to them for a vote or an approval?
It should, yeah.
So it goes to them, and they can vote it down.
Sure, they can vote yes or no. It
That's
has
my
no
point.
bearing
So
on
it goes to
things.
them.
Sure.
Well, it does have bearing.
No, it
because-
does not, because it's a West Lafayette initiated effort.
Okay.
So, and they don't have, they have to have, it has to be within the locality's, boundaries in order for this to have any sort of meat to it.
So with that being said, as ordinance committee, I assume we can amend that plan? We can make recommendations for amendments like we do other land use plans?
Well, the ordinance committee does not have particularly well-described or prescribed duties as such. You folks do whatever the APC tells you. How about that? And if they say to you, yeah, go forth and give us an opinion, and that's what you do. You can do whatever you as a committee decide you want to do. It only matters, though, because the APC can certainly ignore you.
Right, sure. Okay. So, good point. And the Plan Commission sent it back here for us to review this, air it out, public input, make appropriate changes. So,
yeah, if they did that, they handed that to you.
And then we would
sure.
send that back to the Plan Commission like we have in the past, make our recommendations. We can air that out. Sometimes it gets changed, sometimes it doesn't, for approval.
You
From the
can,
full
as long
commission
as you're
is the
requested, as long as you're requested by the APC to do it.
Okay.
They are, all bucks stop at the APC.
Right.
In terms of what you folks do.
So with that being said and thought, I would, since I'm hearing this doesn't have any jurisdiction in the county, and not to put the county commissioners on, I'd like to hear your input on the, whatever, to make a decision about what West Lafayette wants. I would make a motion to remove from the plan any land that's not within the city of West Lafayette.
Okay, just procedurally, though, wouldn't we? I mean,
Thank you, Ron, we'll get it. I know it's symbolic. That's what we're doing.
okay, we already voted on the other motion.
We're going to send a recommended denial, but I want to edit the plan that the Plan Commission approves. I think we're into procedural stuff here.
Yeah.
And then
and
this
so-
may not even, it may come to you, but there won't be any land that's in West Lafayette. Otherwise, my guess is,
Yes.
these guys out there are going to be at your county commissioners meeting saying
Okay,
not
but
to vote
is,
on this.
just procedurally, though, right now it stands that we're recommending denial. But now you're saying if we do approve, we want it amended to
Well,
not?
there's some question about, and I haven't aired that out yet, whether we can recommend it, they can still move forward, which I'm not sure I agree with, that the Parks Department has the authority to,
Council.
the authority that the council has. But I'd like to do some planning like they did, and just say, we don't.
You're
think it makes
incorrect in
sense.
saying the Parks Board has the authority. They didn't. The city council authorized the resolution. I want to make sure we get the terms straight here.
Got it, thank you.
So,
Hey, real quick, Gary, I think what you're wanting to do is lock it down
Bingo.
to
Give
City
them
of
some
Lafayette
feedback.
only,
West
period.
Lafayette. Give them some feedback.
City of West Lafayette Park recommended it, came from City of West Lafayette. You're saying, let's lock it down so that what we are truly discussing is the City of West Lafayette, the area in the box on the map, which I know you're going to say, that's what we are discussing. And he's saying, yeah, let's get rid of all the other stuff outside of it.
Yeah, that's what, and if somebody seconds the motion, then we can officially discuss it. It doesn't have to pass. So I made a
Yeah,
motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to remove any land from the plan that's not in the city of West Lafayette. Now, thoughts on that?
Okay, so, and again, it's procedural here.
It is.
So what, basically, are we sending two recommendations? That's what we're doing.
We're sending
Okay.
no, but we're editing the plan because, as in the last time, there's some question whether, in the end, they get what they want.
You're recommending to the APC that the APC amend the plan.
Correct. We will have an amended plan presented to them. Yeah. And say, this is what we recommend that you This, we
So
have
is-
this plan, we recommend you deny it. And then that plan goes back to,
We recommend denial as amended? Or recommend?
Well, I think you can have, they're not
I hear what you're
inconsistent.
saying.
They're
Yeah, I see what
not
you're saying.
mutually inconsistent.
Yes.
You can do both.
We're making 2 points.
And the recommendation of the ordinance committee can do both of them without being internally inconsistent. So, because they could accept both of them, they could accept one of them, they could accept neither of them.
Because if we amend it, are we recommending approval?
Nope. No, we still have a motion that's been approved to recommend denial. I know it's kind of,
It just seems,
well,
it seems like we can't do
Just
both.
recommend denial.
Yeah, it just seems like
Move
we
on.
can't do both.
That's my opinion.
well, I think we can do both. But, and the reason is because there's some question during state statute, which we don't have in front of us, that they can come back and still approve their plan, override our denial. We're just making a recommendation to them. And there's some question to me, which West Lafayette has not even reviewed this yet. So I'd like to give them some feedback if it, I think it should actually go to West Lafayette for hearing and approval, and then you send it to us, and then you have the authority of that 60-day clock, in my opinion.
Then I think the clearer way to do this is to reverse our vote for denial
Yeah.
and amend, as stated, that we remove everything outside of the West Lafayette jurisdiction, and then either send it for a recommended approval or a recommended no opinion or whatever.
I hear what you're saying. I'm thinking on a different issue, but I'm fine with it not passing, or I can withdraw my motion with recommended denial.
One thing, if I may, one thing, this area that we're referring to is in Wabash and Tippecanoe Townships, which is currently under study for future land use planning. A lot of the Bagel folks have been on our steering committee, so they've been with us since the beginning on that effort. We brought in the park recommendations as proposed land use categories. We did like crosshatches over another land use category.
So what's your proposal?
Well, I'm saying you guys are going to have another chance at bat at this. The commissioners authorized a resolution for us to study both those townships. So we will be delivering a future land use plan that will encapsulate all these areas outside the county
Does
that we can discuss.
So this is not a land use plan. This is a policy.
Their effort is a land use plan.
Does a land use plan have the 5-year reservation?
Yes.
That's subdivision ordinance, so that's law right now.
Okay,
Yes.
so basically you're saying what's going to be presented for Wabash and Tippecanoe Township will also have that 5-year reservation component to it?
It does presently.
It does now, it is now, okay.
Yeah, it's
I didn't
current
know
law,
that.
yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's because the ordinance has never been triggered.
Yeah.
You know, so presumably it hasn't been needed, so, you know. So anyway, so there'll be another chance at bat in terms of the land use part out in the county. I just wanted to make
Well,
that
you're
clear
talking
that
about
this
a
is a coming attraction.
You're talking about a 60-day back and go like we had with the zoning downtown, and I don't think it's the same thing. And what you're saying, I don't think it's the same thing. Because it's
That's
not-
for him to decide on state code interpretation.
Right. Because the city council did not write an ordinance for us to consider. West Lafayette City Council did not write an ordinance for us to consider like the city of Lafayette did. That's my thought.
And I don't have an opinion on that.
Okay.
Is there a motion that you wanted to make, just to try and get us back procedurally?
Well, I don't know that I can make the motion to reverse a previous motion, but.
Yeah, you absolutely can.
I can, okay.
My suggestion is that you make it both, and as I understand where you were going, your motion would be to rescind the no recommendation and to exclude any territory outside the city limits of West Lafayette.
And then.
To recommend that to the APC.
Okay, and then what's going to be the recommendation for the area within West Lafayette? That's the other
Well, you've
component of
rescinded
this.
your no vote, so I don't know. If you rescind your no vote, then this
Can-
group is
can-
giving no recommendation.
Can we send a recommendation of no recommendation?
Of course.
We
You don't
can.
have to do anything. You guys are just recommending body to a recommending body.
Okay, so I'm going to make that motion then that we we remove the area outside of the West Lafayette proper and send a recommendation of no recommendation to.
Okay, so I have a motion to
Rescind.
I thought, say it again, to remove the property outside of West Lafayette.
Exactly.
And to send a no recommendation, is what you said?
No, to send a recommendation of no recommendation. You know,
Okay.
it's not no or yes, it's no
Okay.
recommendation. Because I don't think we can make an amendment to it and then recommend no.
I see what you're saying. So, okay.
I would like you to rescind the previous, to make the record clear. You agree?
Rescind.
Rescind, take it
That
away.
would be part of my motion to
Correct.
rescind.
So
the
one,
previous-
rescind the previous no recommendation.
Okay, and remove land
Two.
inside the county and
Remove.
send a no recommendation to the Plan Commission.
To remove that outside the city and to send it to the APC with no recommendation.
Not with a no recommendation.
Without
No
a recommendation.
Without a,
recommendation. I
yes,
got you.
without a
I'm with you.
recommendation.
I'm with you.
Okay.
So can we discuss, well, somebody.
Yeah, we do. We have to have a second on that first, and then we can discuss it. So, here's the way I understand it.
Was there a second?
Not yet,
Okay.
but I think we're still trying to understand I think I understand it. You're making a motion to, I already made a motion, so I'll withdraw my motion. So your motion is to remove the land outside of the city limits of West Lafayette from the policy document and to send it to the full Plan Commission without a recommendation.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. So that's the motion that's proposed. If we have a second, we can discuss it. We can amend it, we can deny it.
Well, I mean, let's
Just make a second.
Yeah,
Somebody.
second, let's discuss
Okay,
it.
so we have a motion and a second.
Yeah.
So,
If that's what we send to APC, then and there's other information that's brought in or discussed at that time.
we can do whatever we want.
Based
Actually,
on
what he's
updated
saying.
information.
Yeah, this is just a recommendation to them.
Yeah.
And we can do what, it can
And we can
change again.
explain why we sent a recommendation of no recommendation or without.
Without a recommendation.
Yeah, let's use that term, yeah.
Okay, have a motion and a second on that. Is there further discussion on that motion? I know Jackson's thinking.
Yeah, I'm really not clear.
Okay.
So
Because if we
the reason.
send the original no motion, then can we just send under this right here? And then we can come back and make another motion that we recommend.
Do that too.
That as a second motion, that we recommend included in this, a yes or no, that it only incorporates West Lafayette, and we still have two votes. In other words, we're against one completely, but the other one, we have an option to just take in West Lafayette.
Okay, I think we
Do that too.
Okay,
It
so we have a
doesn't
motion.
seem-
Free to do it any way you
It
want.
does.
Do that, but
So we have a motion on the floor to remove the land from not in the city of West Lafayette city limits on the plan and send it without a recommendation. Now, I may have a motion after this one, but, so that's the motion and the second on the floor. Further discussion on that. I think it's important to remove that land, at least on the plan. So, any other comments?
But we could do that then.
So let's get rid of this one first, this
Okay.
motion. All's in favor, say aye.
aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so I believe there's only one nay.
Nay, I meant nay.
Okay, I got you, I know what you meant. So anyway, that motion carries. So,
So it's 5-1.
yeah,
Yeah.
5-1. And
I'd say, yeah.
we've amended the plan to remove land on the policy document. That'll go to the full Plan Commission for our, now, there's no recommendation at this point because we kind of nixed the no recommendation. So Jerry, you had some comments about their thoughts.
Yeah, just about, and add to only West Lafayette.
We already did.
Yeah, I make a motion.
We already did.
We already did.
That's done.
All right.
So,
The only thing I will ask you to do to clarify the record is to rescind your original no vote. Okay?
So do we need a motion to rescind
Yes,
it?
please.
Okay. I'll
Absolutely.
make that motion.
So I have a motion to rescind the no vote.
The
Second.
original no vote.
Yes. So the motion's going to fail if I don't hear a second.
I said second.
Jackson second.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. So we have a motion and a second to rescind the no vote. Any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Okay, so there we are. We got 6 minutes left. Anything else we want to discuss? Ryan or staff, if you would, I think this lacked in the ordinance 20 years ago where people doing plans did not notify landowners. Could we see if that's in the plan? I'm pretty sure I remember that being made, that you have to notify landowners when you rezone their property, and see if we might amend our ordinance so when you're making a plan on someone's property, you also notify them, send them a letter, do something. Thank you very much.
Now, the only thing with that is, obviously, if there's a rezone, they are being notified. If there's a plan.
It was a land use plan is what it was. It was during NUZO, and they were doing away with OR, or they're doing away with I.
Well, that's right, they changed the zoning.
Yeah, they did away with some
They did
zoning.
just down zone or change
Right.
the zoning. You didn't change the whole system.
So are you talking about
Bingo.
if there's a
That's
plan
right.
being done, or if there's a rezone being done? Because that's two different things.
I'm thinking it had to do with changing zoning because they took away industrial reserve was the big one.
Okay, because I think we do that, right? We do notify if there's a change in zoning being proposed.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
So, but I think maybe your intent was to notify people if there was going to be a comprehensive plan.
Just like this, yeah.
Yes.
So give.
But this doesn't involve any rezones.
No, it's just
Okay.
a plan. and
It's just a plan.
It happened in West Lafayette where they kind of put some, and the landowners didn't know either till kind of the last second. And
Yeah.
that got amended because somebody heard and they came up.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that. They were doing park reservations. And that may have even been a zoning thing. I
Yeah.
can't remember, but we changed that.
But like when we
Anyway.
did Wabash, as we're doing Wabash and Tippecanoe Township now, I mean, letters weren't sent out to every parcel owner.
No,
Yeah.
but we're really not changing any zoning yet. But after that plan, they may be a zoning change, and that's when you would notify.
That's when you know. So you wouldn't notify them in this process because there's no zoning changes here.
No, but you're putting a reservation on their property.
Well, a potential reservation on their property, but you are with the plan too.
Yeah.
Only if a subdivision action's been initiated does that 5-year thing come into play.
Subdivision, okay, yeah. I got you.
Yeah, so a
But-
private property owner has to initiate a subdivision action.
I got you.
And then as part of the sketch plan process, locality comes in with their parks people, apart from other checkpoints, and then they make their case for the reservation.
Okay, I got you. But we've heard from the public that they weren't notified. I think it's reasonable that we notify them. That's all I'm saying, just notify them. Yeah, yeah. Anything else we need to discuss? 3 minutes left.
Well, we have a whole nother agenda.
Well, I
item.
have a quick question.
do.
I mean, I have a
Zoe
quick
and
question
US.
for the APC, because you've been asked some questions to get some information, so I'm wondering, not to put you under a
Yeah.
timeline, but is that information going to be able to be disseminated before we get in here next Wednesday, and then we're all like...
The legal issues?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, 2 weeks, right? Yeah, 2 weeks.
The two? Yeah.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
That's fine. There may not be a lot of case law on it, so it may be a big
And
zero.
that's fine if there isn't any. Yeah, that's fine if there's not any.
We'll just have to see.
Okay. So we do have another, are we done with this one? Okay.
So the 21st would have to get.
Yeah, so we have another agenda item. Is there any reason to start that, or?
Yes, there is.
Okay, go for it. Oh, there is, yeah, at least kick it off.
Yeah, I think this will be quick. This isn't a resolution or anything formal to bring, but I met with Gary and Larry 6 weeks ago to talk about the prospect of doing a comprehensive update to our zoning and subdivision ordinances, which is something that I think is past due. And they suggested I bring it to the ordinance committee to talk about. And it's timely because the opportunity to request a capital outlay from the county council is now due, and I would be asking for that for 2024. So I'm here to kind of get a consensus agreement from everybody that this is a worthwhile activity. I kind of want to talk about it from a high level rather than get into the weeds of the ordinance, because there's lots and lots of weeds. But my overriding concern is that our ordinances together, subdivision and zoning ordinance, is about 600 pages, and they're unbelievably complex and indecipherable to the average layperson in many senses. I get calls frequently, somebody, an attorney or just a person with a house wanting to put a fence up, accessory structure. And they'll ask me something, where can I do this, what can I do, what does the ordinance say? And I have a lot of experience reading ordinances, but I rarely can give him a confident answer. I'll usually go to staff, and staff has among them 80 years deciphering our ordinances, I think, more than anybody except for a handful of really old lawyers in town. And it's rare that we can come up with a really final answer. It's usually an interpretation, and it usually begins, I think, ... So there are layers of complexity in our ordinance that I think are just needless, and I think they stifle development, and they make things more expensive than they need to be, and they make staff time. They demand that we spend time really working through arcane and relatively unimportant clauses. I can't impress enough that there's just too much there, and I think if not taking a minimalist approach, we at least need to pare it down very significantly. It needs to be streamlined. It needs to be, in many senses, purged. There's just way too much there. What is there doesn't necessarily get us what we need. From a zoning enforcement perspective, I just need very simple, clear information on what constitutes aggregation of trash, what constitutes, you might say, hoarding, what constitutes a junkyard. And it doesn't even give me that much information. I can find definitions, and they can cross-reference me over here and refer to SIC codes, which are abandoned. But it doesn't give me what I need, and it gives me so much more of what we don't need. So I would like to overhaul the whole thing. A point of reference here, the zoning ordinance is 25 years old now. Generally with the zoning ordinance, you want to do a comprehensive amendment every 10 to 15 years. The subdivision ordinance really dates back to 1980, and it's not been comprehensively overhauled since then. And there's been a lot of advances in the world of subdivision ordinances since then. So what I want to do is unify the two, put them together, call it what's known as a unified zoning and subdivision ordinance, so they share definitions, they share charts and graphs and basic information, and they integrate and communicate with one another much better than our current ordinances do. And although it's been our department's historic legacy to do everything in-house, which is we're doing our planning right now in-house, I would like, in this instance, to bring in some external, third-party, objective, expertise to help with this, rather than do it just strictly from our interior. You know, we have a lot of institutional knowledge, which is very helpful, but it can also create a somewhat insular and even provincial environment where there's a lot of great stuff happening out in the world, but it doesn't necessarily get reflected in what we do and see and work on here. So, with that, I am going to be asking for funding from the county council to help with this. My thought is that we could start it in 2024, use the ordinance committee as sort of the touchstone for the thing. The ordinance committee was actually born in 1998 out of the need to overhaul the then zoning ordinance, so it's 25 years old. So kind of bring the ordinance committee back to its original purpose, bring in an external firm, and it'll probably be a 12 to 18 month process. Typically that's what it takes for a jurisdiction of our size, pretty sizable. So it's not a formal resolution or anything. I'm kind of just looking for a consensus, some nodding heads, so they can go to the county council and ask for a certain amount of funding to make this happen.
David, do you envision like a working group? You know, because as we've seen tonight, you know, this group, you know, I can see you bringing a lot of issues to this group. It might be beneficial to have a working group that includes a variety of different people that are working on it.
Yeah, I think this ordinance committee would again sort of be the nerve center of the thing. Typically, with a project like this, there would be a pretty substantial steering committee put together with all of your stakeholders, representatives and citizens from every corner, developers, all of the usual suspects plus others.
And that group would hash things out before they came here? Is that what you would envision?
Yeah, the steering committee is typically going to meet monthly and guide staff and this external entity that we would bring in. Probably, I would envision maybe quarterly updates brought to the Area Plan Commission. And at the same time, because it's going to impact both cities and the smaller municipalities, dispatches to those legislative bodies too.
Yeah.
But yeah, steering committee would kind of be the larger group, and it could be composed of anything from, I would guess in this instance, probably 20 to 25 people.
Okay.
I think, we did meet, we talked about that. I think simplification is good. I get some notices in the mail, and they're much easier to read than the past ones for rezoning, subdivisions. Those work well. I think maybe we, include some developers, attorneys, surveyors, but I'm not sure that people want to remake the community or make vast changes in the ordinance. I mean, if the goal is to simplify and make it easier to read, I think that's a pretty easy sell. If we're going in and trying, if the consultant comes in and says, you guys are in the Stone Ages, you need to do this, I'm not sure, it might be a hard sell, but we'll work through
we
that.
are in some ways in the Stone Ages, and I hope to convince, people of that. But the bigger issue is that we need to reduce more than add to it.
Oh, I agree. Reduce that, simplify, I think is a great idea.
May I ask? Sure. Is there a particular county that you have seen, because I know you've been in various counties that does it well?
That does zoning well?
That does it well, that does what you're saying, take it and pare it down to what you really need and make it clear and easily understood by everybody. Is any county that you know of that's done it well?
I would give Indianapolis a B on having done that. That was one of their primary purposes, and they did 2 massive rezoning projects in the last less than 20 years. The first one was essentially to take what was legal speak and make it plain speak. And then the second one was to kind of refine what they had done the first time around. And what they ended up with at the end is a pretty good document. It's still, I think, in my eyes, needlessly complex, but the concept of zoning minimalism is taking root in other cities, and I could drum some up. Again, I don't know that we want to go that route because that would be a wholesale change over what we do now, but my personal belief is that if you shouldn't have rules you don't need to have, and we have a lot of those.
I think they'd agree with that as, make development easier. Maybe industrial, we do pretty well. Residential seems to get tighter and tighter, and obviously we're behind the 8 ball on development. If we look at things in the plan that maybe restrict that or things that we could make that easier, I know we do that from time to time, but it seems like that would be a focal point. I know we're working on some things, which I think is good.
Agree. So I don't know, you can vote if you'd like, but I just kind of want to get the nodding heads that I think I'm seeing so that we can go to council.
Do we have a motion? I mean, it's going to be county funding. We don't have any county councilman here.
I think we can just do it by consensus.
Okay, so if somebody wants to make a motion that David can proceed and ask for funding, and we can monitor that along the way.
Yeah, if you want a motion, I can make that motion.
Yeah, sure, we'll just have it on the record, and we'll have a second from...
Second.
There we go. Motion is second that Dave pursue... Let's get this motion. Just stand by right there. Don't go away. So do we have a motion? Did we get a second? So we have a motion, a second. I think that motion is to have David go to the county council, ask for some funding to hire a consultant to look at our plan commission look at the ordinance, subdivision, zoning ordinance, combine those, make them simpler. So that's our motion. Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Ryan Kennedy, Northridge Drive, West Lafayette. I guess I don't have any problem with taking a look at the UZO. It is long, but from, a builder or developer standpoint, there is enough detail in there that lays out, what we need to do, to do our jobs. I would just encourage you, when you do take a look at this, to just don't leave any gray areas and don't leave, the new ordinance subjective, and just give us a clear path to what, we need to do, and that's it. So, thank you.
Good point. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Citizens' comments. So we have a few more minutes. Any citizens' comments, concerns, grievances? Hearing none. Last call. Okay, hearing none, take that last motion.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you.
We can always depend on you for our last motion.
Take that too.
Oh, okay.
You better get going. How old is that kid? 15?
Yeah.
No kidding.
You get something. So I've been doing it first.
Gas.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Hang with us. We'll get to the right answer after we get enough.